Hello. So I made a video a while ago about how to do a finger stick to get a blood test without making it hurt. Because I think this is super important. We diabetics have to prick our fingers constantly, and if it hurts, you don't want to do it, and then you're constantly re-injuring your fingers and bruising and leg problems, and that sucks, right? This is a daily thing, multiple times a day. We don't want it to suck. So, I am making this video as a part 2 to the first video I made. The first one was about doing the sides of your fingers instead of the pads and tips. Since then, I have learned a fancy new trick about doing the backs of your fingers. I'd always felt this technique was kind of elusive and like a little weird, and I could never figure it out, and it always hurt like a mother, so I just kind of gave up on it. But then I learned this little tidbit from some random stranger on the internet and changed everything. I started doing it. I haven't stopped doing it since then. I pretty much stopped doing the underside of my hand. This is called the palmar side, and this is called the dorsal side of your hand, if you care to know. So the dorsal side of your fingertip along the nail bed is an option for testing your blood sugar. But how do you get that spot to bleed? And oh my god, that hurts. Well, if you try to use the techniques for this side of your finger on this side, not going to work. It's going to hurt. So it was a learning process for me. I mean, everything's a learning process, but it's just one of those things that was always elusive and strange. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So I'm a big fan of super, super fine lancets. These are one-touch Delica lancets. They're a 33 gauge. As you can see, they're incredibly small. The bigger the lancet, the more blunt the needle and the tip, the bigger the hole it makes, and the more it hurts, and the more pressure it requires to force it into your skin. So the finer the lancet, the less pressure, the less pain, all those fun things. So, like I said, one-touch Delica 33 gauge. Those are my go-to. They've been that way for a long time, and I'm a die-hard fan of that. So, the depth of your lancing device is also very important for this technique, as well as any other finger sticking technique. So, for the dorsal side of your hand, you want to back off a little bit. You don't need to stab as deeply into your finger as you do on the palmar side. So normally I have this set to a 7, which is the deepest it goes, and I kind of just gently press against my finger for doing the pad or the side. I backed it off to a 4. I might have to do a 5, depends on how well my finger wants to bleed today. So anyway, back off on the depth, and then pick where you want it to go. For me, I'm going to choose my middle finger. These fingers usually bleed pretty well. And I'm going to poke right here in this little spot kind of between the bulge of my knuckle and the nail bed. So right there. Not too close to the nail, not too far around, but you'll see. So get your poker cocked, and then just sort of gently stab. And then you want to squeeze down like this as you pinch. See? Perfect blood sample. Now, I did a little more on the side, as you can see, but you can do that up here too. So the way you squeeze your finger is super important. When I squeeze my finger for a blood sample on this side of my finger, I kind of wrap my hands around my finger and push up like this, away from me towards the tip of my finger, squeeze out like this, and kind of working the blood out. Now on this side of your finger, that doesn't work. That actually kind of pinches it off, and it prevents it from bleeding. So when you do the other side of your finger, and you can even do these knuckles too, you have to spread the skin down. It's the opposite motion. So you're still squeezing your finger like this, but you're pulling down like this on the finger to spread the skin out. And that kind of opens up the blood vessel, and it just, whoop, nice, beautiful, comes out. This one took me some practice to master because it's a different squeezing technique, and it's a little odd. But I mean, you can get a pretty consistent blood sample like this with some practice. Of course, I gotta show you when it's not working. Let's try another finger. See? Super easy, and it doesn't hurt. If it hurts, no offense, but I think you're doing it wrong. Or you have the wrong setup. You have something's not right here. Just like injections, if you're testing your blood sugar or taking an injection and it hurts, you're not doing it right. And I've been diabetic for 26 years. I've learned some tips and some tricks for how to manipulate everything, but the consistent thing that I have found is that if it hurts, you're probably not doing it right, or you hit a vein and some nerves and blood came out everywhere. But finger sticks, I check my blood sugar anywhere from like 8 to 15 times a day. And if I had to do that with bruised fingertips from shoving blunt objects into them all day long, that would suck. I don't want to do that. So that's why I use the One Touch Delica, and that's why I've kind of like messed around and figured out like, okay, how do I get the maximum blood sample from my finger with the minimal pain and minimal effort? Because I got to do this all the time. I don't want it to take forever to poke my finger. And if I have to do this every single day for the rest of my life, yeah, I'm going to figure out how to like optimize the process and maximize the outcome of it. So anyway, that's my little rant about why it shouldn't hurt. Yeah, I think you guys should try this technique for yourself and see what happens. The biggest thing that I want you to take away from this video about poking the tops of your fingers versus the pads of your fingers is that you have to squeeze in a different way. You can't just and expect blood. Like, I mean, that doesn't really work for me anyway, but you want to like pinch the skin apart, like peel your skin back like this and open up the blood vessel so that, woo, it can all come out. So just, you know, peel apart, spread it away, pull down like this, but at the same time you're also like squeezing your knuckle like this to encourage the blood flow. I know that's kind of a strange concept to wrap your head around. It takes some practice. You're gonna have to stab yourself like 1,000,000 times before you figure it out, but highly recommend, because that opens up like twice as much space for you to test your blood sugar. So if you've already tested each finger once today and you still have 5 more finger sticks to do and you don't want to poke the same finger twice in one day, whoop, got the other side of your hands you can do. Hey, and you can do this side, you can do that side, you can do this knuckle, you can do both sides of it. Like, you have all kinds of options. You don't have to feel limited. You don't have to feel like you need to go out and spend a bunch of money on some genteel thing that doesn't poke you. And I don't know, I think devices like that are, I appreciate where they're coming from, but there are ways to do this stuff that's super low tech that doesn't require a monetary investment like that. I mean, I've had this same poker and 1 box of lancets for like 10 years, you know? I'm super low tech about all this, and I want to expend the minimal amount of brain power possible. I mean, obviously I think about this a lot, but each individual finger stick, I want it to get to the point where it's routine and I don't care anymore. So I feel like I've ranted on this video a little more than I've been informational. However, if you guys have questions, please ask, because this was a technique that kind of like blew my mind a little bit and it changed things for me. And obviously it took me 26 years to get to this point to figure it out. But some random stranger on the internet, whose name I wish I could remember, changed my life. I know that it's silly that learning a new technique for finger sticks would change your life, but I mean, if you gotta do it all day long, you know, yeah, that's life-changing. So anyway, good luck with all of this. If you try it, let me know. I want to hear other people doing this because, you know, it took me forever to find it randomly sifting through a forum on the internet. So please let me know how you feel about this, and if you try it, I want to hear about your success and your failures and what works for you. I just threw my test strips on the floor. Anyway, let me know.